You were alive when it happened, but your brain made sure you'd forget it. Hey there, welcome to Hidden Truths 77. Have you ever tried to remember what you were like as a baby? Maybe you have a few random images floating around in your mind, like the smell of your mother's milk or being cradled in someone's arms. But for most of us, our earliest memories don't really begin until we are toddlers. And that's not because we didn't experience anything worth remembering before then. It's because our brains just weren't equipped to store those memories. What is up, brain? Our brain has several different memory systems. One of them is the hippocampus, which is responsible for storing explicit memories or memories that we can recall intentionally. The hippocampus develops rapidly during the first couple of years of life. But according to researchers from the University of California, San Diego, it doesn't reach adult levels of efficiency until around age 3. Not only that, but a lot of our brain development happens before we're born and after we are. This includes the growth and reorganization of neurons and synapses, the gaps between neurons where messages are sent. And while this is happening, our brain is still forming new neurons in a process called neurogenesis. So while it seems simple enough to say that we don't remember things because our brain wasn't developed enough to make memories, it's actually a bit more complicated than that. Researchers believe that along with our brain physically developing, it also needs to be pruned. In other words, it needs to get rid of some of its structures and connections in order to function properly. Pruning begins before we're born, but it continues throughout childhood into adolescence. Our brain prunes away about half of all its synapses during this time. According to the lead researcher of the study mentioned earlier, Dr. May, if you think of a forest, you might imagine lots of leaves and branches intertwined. As the forest matures, though, some of those branches have to be removed in order for the remaining branches to grow strong. It's the same way with our brains. By pruning away unnecessary synapses, our brains are better able to form new connections and strengthen existing ones. And this pruning process is partly responsible for why we don't remember much from before age 3. So does that mean that our memories from before then are literally pruned away from our brains? Well, that's a possibility, but some researchers suggest there may be another explanation for infantile amnesia. If you were born via C-section, you might have missed out on the final stage of brain development that occurs during natural birth. According to the American Pregnancy Association, babies born vaginally need to squeeze through the birth canal, which helps develop their neurological system by putting pressure on their heads. This pressure stimulates nerves in the brainstem, and the flow of blood returning from the placenta provides oxygen to the baby's brain. These things help prepare the baby's brain for life outside the womb. This means that babies born via C-section might miss out on these stimulating activities, which could affect brain development and potentially contribute to infantile amnesia. However, research has not been conclusive on whether or not C-sections and subsequent infantile amnesia are related. But we've talked about brain development and pruning and birth trauma. There's one other piece to this puzzle: emotion. We don't just remember facts and events, we remember how we feel about them too. And for most people, emotional memories are harder to form in the first couple of years of life. This could be due to our brain not fully developing or being pruned, as we discussed earlier. But it could also be because our minds haven't developed the necessary tools to utilize our memories and emotions at the same time. According to an article published by the APA, the human mind needs 3 things to form emotional memory. 1. Language. 2. An emotional context in which to interpret that language. And 3. Self-awareness. Before children have developed language skills, they communicate primarily through crying, cooing, and babbling, all of which are great ways to express emotion. But they lack the ability to verbally explain what they're feeling or attach words to those feelings. Additionally, children don't yet have the capacity to understand the social and physical cues that help us figure out how to act or what to think in certain situations. For example, if a child falls down and starts crying, adults usually rush to comfort them. Once the child gets a little older, they'll start understanding that they expected to cry when they fall down, that they should probably do something else to stop the pain. At that point, they can link the emotion of pain with the action of crying, but without language, they wouldn't be able to connect the two. Finally, kids under the age of 3 or 4 don't have a strong sense of self. They don't really know who they are as individuals separate from those around them. Without this sense of self, it's hard to form emotional memories, because how we react to things often depends on our perspective. Take getting a present for Christmas. A kid who loves Legos would probably love getting a set of Legos for Christmas, whereas a kid who prefers to play with dolls would probably rather get a dollhouse. Each child would react differently based on their individual preferences, and those preferences are based on their unique experiences and sense of self. But young children don't have much of a self-awareness developed yet, so they won't react in such a nuanced way. This is part of the reason why the first toys we really loved as kids are usually something we still enjoy today. Our preferences hadn't crystallized yet, so we liked everything. This also means that we probably won't remember much about how we felt when we received those gifts, although there's always the chance that we might. In 2017, Scientists used MRI scans to study 24 kids between the ages of 3 and 6. They wanted to see how kids' brains respond to emotional words like happy, sad, angry, and fearful. What they found was that as kids got older, they began to show more activity in their left inferior frontal lobe, an area of the brain associated with self-awareness. Basically, as kids get older, they begin to understand themselves better. So they begin to interpret their emotions in a more complex way. This leads to the formation of emotional memories. And it's also why we tend to remember more of our feelings as we get older. Okay, so now we know why we don't remember much from the first couple of years of our lives. But can we remember being born? You've probably heard stories of elderly people remembering their past lives or being able, under hypnosis, to recall their birth. While it might make for an interesting story, it's likely false memory. There's no scientific evidence to support claims that people can remember their births, and memories retrieved under hypnosis are often inaccurate. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Individual Differences had participants listen to a recording of either neutral information or traumatic information immediately after an event. After they listened to the recording, they were asked to recall as much as they could about the original event. A week later, they were put under hypnosis and asked to retrieve more memories. Researchers found that memories retrieved under hypnosis contained more detail than those recalled immediately after the event, but they were also less accurate. Sometimes people added details that never happened in an attempt to fill in the blanks. Other times, they confused the order of events or simply made up memories. So even if someone does remember their birth, it's likely not accurate. It might be impossible to remember being born, but that doesn't mean we haven't thought about it. Sometimes it feels like we're searching for answers to questions we didn't even know we had. But learning more about ourselves and our brains helps us appreciate the journey of life a little more. When was your first real memory? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend. Subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell for more videos. Thanks for watching.